Okay, number five. Also, I did a costume change.
You make your daddy proud. You hear me?
I'm gonna make you so proud.
You make your daddy proud.
Proud.
Okay, how do I even begin to explain this one? So I am not a expert in art history. I am more of a fan and a casual fan of that. But there was a movement made famous by Marcel Duchamp and others called Dadaism, which is basically, for lack of better terms, just like spitting in the face of intellectual art and challenging like meta commentary on art. And I think this movie is that. And I know I'm not the first to say that, but I tend to agree with the people that say that. So if you don't know, basically the plot is that Tom Green plays a guy named Gord who goes to Hollywood to become an animator, except he has no animation talent. He is problematic, is the least easiest way to describe him. He has a romantic love interest that is a rocket scientist and also bound to a wheelchair, and is addicted to giving oral sex. So, all of that sounds awful, and it is, but it's so subversive. It's so subversive and transgressive. Like, this movie, just the fact that this movie exists, that Tom Green got funding to make this, that for all intents and purposes, I believe he had more or less full creative control over it. And whether he intended to or not, I'm going to take the death of the author kind of stance on this. Regardless of whether he intended to or not, this movie is fucking subversive. The fact that, another movie I'm not a big fan of is There's Something About Mary. More or less because, like, some of the jokes are fine, but it's just, like, a lot of it is, it's just the attractive orthopedic surgeon Cameron Diaz falling in love with schlumpy Ben Stiller, even though she dated Brett Favre, and like it just it's not fun or entertaining for me. And to my credit, I don't find this movie fun or entertaining either. So I should have prefaced this by saying I don't put this movie on to have a laugh or to like because it's a well-made movie and because like I love watching it. No, in fact, I haven't watched it much. But I think that this is even Roger Ebert, like years later, called this film a milestone in film, even though he gave it 0 stars and hated it. Um, it's so like it just spits in the face of so many Hollywood tropes and shit. And it like I said, whether it was intended or not, I don't care. The fact that like compare like the love interest in this to Cameron Diaz, for example, and There's Something About Mary, where like this love interest is literally wheelchair bound and serves no purpose other than to suck Tom Green's dick. And that sounds like awful and misogynistic. How much more misogynistic is it to have an attractive female in a film whose only purpose is to fall in love with the schluppy average dude with problems? Right? Like it's and at least this film isn't hiding anything. That's the thing. Like it's not hiding anything. It's awkward, it's dumb, and like there's a scene where like he basically Tom Green just gets like $1 million to create his animation and he just literally wastes it. He just wastes it. And it just made me think like that's what he did with this film too. And it's I think it's a more important film than people think. Like this paves the way for stuff like Step Brothers, which a lot of people like. Like Step Brothers is dumb. It's nonsense. It's random. It's just not as grotesque as Freddy Got Fingered. But like, what's the point of doing it if it's not going to push some buttons, so to speak? You know what I mean? That's the way I feel about art in general. Like, it serves some purpose, right? Some art is just meant to be consumed without much thought or like deep thinking. Saw franchise, which I talked about in the last video, is an example, right? And the next movie I'm going to talk about is that too. But like this movie, at least, like I'm struggling to talk about it without coming off as like snobby artist elitist kind of thing, right? But like it uses so many tropes while at the same time subverting them. It's hard to ignore. So I think I look at this more positively and more I think I just look at it differently maybe than a lot of people do, especially upon first time seeing it. And I'm not saying that everyone should watch this. I don't think everyone should watch this. I don't think anyone should watch it maybe. But I still think that it's really weirdly genius in a lot of ways.
Wasn't expecting that to happen. You missed the move! Pathetic loser!
Is this your dad?
That's my phone! Ah!
Regency Enterprises presents Tom Green.
He's a stupid!
Not stupid.
He's a stupid!
Not stupid.
He's stupid!
Not stupid.
Freddy Got Fingered.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I still have some work to do. Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausage?
We're real proud of
I
him.
think I could have come up with a better title.
All right. This is the one I'm going to struggle the hardest to explain. It's number 4.
Everybody on Earth is dead in a year.
The core of the Earth has stopped spinning.
The spinning core protects us from cosmic radiation.
Without it, radiation will create superstorms. Microwaves will literally cook our planet.
How could this have happened? It was Project Destiny. We killed the planet.
I don't even know what to say about this. I really don't. This is the one I struggle. I mentioned in the first video that there is one movie I cannot give a good reason why I like watching it. This is it. What am I going to tell you? This is probably the biggest guilty pleasure on my list. And what I mean by that is, like, I enjoy this so much. I watch it every year, at least once. And it's... I have no reason. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, really good reasons why I can keep watching it. The one of them is the pacing's really good. There's not a dull moment in it, really. The character actors are great. Hilary Swank, Aaron Eckhart, Stanley Tucci, of course. It's just such a dumb premise. It's so stupid. The core of the Earth is stopped spinning because the government made a weapon out of it to cause volcanoes. And we gotta create a train that goes to the center of it and set off nuclear bombs to make it spin again. I don't know. I really don't know. This is the one I just get the most joy out of watching this one. There's only one more after this that I get more joy out of watching than this. And it's so dumb. It's so dumb. But the thing is, like, okay, so MIT once did a list of, like, their 5 or so films that they said are, like, the least scientifically accurate. And this is number 1. But, like, but, like, I'm not watching it for hard science. And there's not really any, like, big disasters. It's not like 2012 or Day After Tomorrow or anything like that. So there's one film that a lot of people kind of say, oh, it's my guilty pleasure. And for a lot of people, it's Independence Day. Independence Day is okay. I don't really get as much joy out of watching it anymore as I did way back when it came out. This I can keep watching. I don't even have an explanation. This is the one I can't explain to you. Hilary Swank's an astronaut. Aaron Eckhart is a geologist. Stanley Tucci is basically trying to be the next Carl Sagan. And they use supersonic waves to blast through the Earth. And they can walk around next to lava and not get burnt. It's fine. It's so dumb. This is also where the whole, like, hack the planet kind of meme comes from, is this movie. It's so stupid. I love it.
Whoever goes into the core is not coming back.
We're losing oxygen!
We got a job to do. Let's do it.
All right. Number 3.
They spoke of it first in whispers. Then it took the media by storm.
I have existed from the morning of the world, and I shall exist until the last star falls from the heavens. Although I have taken the form of Caius Caligula, I am a god.
Okay, so this is another one that's kind of hard to defend. I think it's just so over the top and ridiculous, and it's just like, it's such a spectacle. I think that's the best way to describe this film, is it's a spectacle. If you don't know, this is Caligula, made by Penthouse Films. The only film they ever produced. They did do funding for films, though. Like, they funded Chinatown. So this was originally Penthouse, apparently, from what I read, wanted to get into film production. And so they hired Gore Vidal, of all people, to write a screenplay. They paid him like $200,000 or something like that for his screenplay. They hired a director. The director didn't like it because it had too much homosexual overtones, and so he toned them down. The producer wanted to include more unsimulated, explicit sex scenes using Penthouse, actors, and it stars Malcolm McDowell, Peter O'Toole, Helen Mirren. It's insane. Like, there's so many quotable lines in this. It's just off the wall absurd. It's gross, it's vulgar, it's monstrous, but that was Caligula, wasn't it? And it's not historically accurate or anything. It's like, it's camp. It's basically camp. And I don't know. It's entertaining, at least for me. The sex scenes are definitely gratuitous. I'm not even going to try to defend them. So if you can find like a rated R version of this without the sex scenes, that's probably worth seeing. Because if you get the unrated or whatever version it's called cut, it includes unsimulated sex scenes. And it's just, Malcolm McDowell puts his heart and soul into it. Helen Mirren still defends it to this day. And I don't even know. It's camp. It's not trash. I don't think it's trash. It's definitely a cult classic for a reason. And I wish I could defend it more, but I can't. I really don't know. I think it's just like, it's one of those ones that, like, the motif of, and the kind of theme of power corrupting and stuff still works in it. It feels Shakespearean in a lot of ways. But at it's all it's so grimy and disgusting and like gratuitous at a lot of times, and the film itself feels like a Roman orgy, and I'm talking about the actual orgy scenes and the actual unsimulated sex. It just feels like a film of excess and just regurgitation and slovenly just behavior. It's like they built film sets with the intent of it feeling like Citizen Kane and all this stuff, and that's not like me reading into it. That's a quote that they wanted to. That's a fact about the film. They wanted the set designer, costume designer, and producer wanted it to be like basically a new style of a new Citizen Kane that blended full length theater narrative with pornography, and it's controversial for very good reasons. I think the unedited version is still banned in some countries. It's tame by standards today, honestly, but it's still shocking. And the biggest reason is because it's just such a big budget and such a grand epic scale. And Malcolm McDowell and Peter O'Toole and Helen Mirren are in it. And it's a sight to behold. And even watching it again, I am just amazed that this thing got made. Well, the people involved in it, like, it doesn't stop just surprising me that this thing even exists. And I guess that's the highest praise I can give it. Another one I can't recommend, but just what the fuck?
Malcolm McDowell, Teresa Ann Savoy, Helen Mirren, Peter O'Toole, John Gielgud. No rumor can match the reality. Caligula, rated R.
All right. Before I even talk about number 2, the name basically tells you what the film's about.
Just any old car. Where is it?
See, what people don't understand is that we choose to live like free people.
It's called Trash Humpers, and it's people wearing old people masks humping trash cans. And so I'll try to explain this. First of all, you're not going to be able to find this. You're just not going to. I ordered a DVD. This is the only, not this specific DVD that I'm holding, but this version is the only one you can get. It's not on Blu-ray. It's not streaming. There's no other legitimate way to get it than through this DVD right here. And this is by a director named Harmony Korine. Harmony Korine is another controversial director, auteur. He's another one of those kind of like Lars von Trier, where like a lot of people look at Harmony as like the delusional artist, basically, right? So Harmony Korine has done quite a few films. He wrote the film Kids, which is very controversial. He did another one. His first big breakout was Gummo, about a Ohio town that was kind of left in the devastation of a tornado and not recovering. He did another film that I'm going to talk about in the next video that I do, or the next series of videos I do, which is 20 films I like that you might not have heard of. And more recently, he's done more mainstream movies, Spring Breakers, and Beach Bum. But this is one that he did between, like, kind of in the middle of all that. And it's called Trash Humpers. So, the film is just a vignette, a montage of just VHS handheld shot footage of these basically like, they're not homeless as far as I know, but they're just like people that wear old people masks and just go around in the suburbs at night just causing chaos, and about like people they meet and just random things they say and stuff. And there's no plot, really. There's no plot. It's not it's kind of experimental, but not really. The best way to describe it, and the reason why I like it, because I'm one of the very few that like it, is that it accomplishes what Harmony Korine meant to do with it, which is he tells a story about how when he grew up, at least in the booklet here, and I don't know if it's actually true or if it's a narrative that he created to go with the movie, but basically living in an apartment complex, looking out the window, he would see people living under, like elderly people that were probably homeless, living under an overpass, and they would just be dancing randomly, frantic. They would just hump trash cans, just being strange. And he kind of wondered, like, the lives that they lived, kind of thing, you know? And it's just like this film kind of creates imagery and moments that you can't forget about. It impressed that on him as a young person. And he made this film basically feel, not a snuff film because there's no death per se in it as far as I remember, but making it feel like you're seeing something that maybe you weren't meant to see. Like something like that was shot by these weird people for their own, for their own purposes, and then found. And he actually talks about in interviews that he originally thought about breaking this movie up and putting it on different VHSs and just leaving them out in the world, like flea markets and bookshops and shit like that, and seeing if people would discover and put it together, complete it, or something like that. And he ultimately decided to release it as a full-length feature, but he still wanted to preserve this feeling that you found, I think in his own words, he said, feeling like you found a VHS in a ditch by the side of the road and you plug it in to your VHS player and this is what comes up. And I think that it's super effective at that. Like, it's bizarre. It's unsettling. It's creepy. It evokes something. That's, you know what? I like it for that reason. This is one, even if it was more widely available, this is another one I don't know if I can recommend. It's just, and like I said at the beginning, Harmony Korine basically called it Trash Humpers because he wanted people to, like, there's no pretense. You know what you're getting. And it's, I don't even know. It's hard to explain. I think I explained it the best I can, and maybe like the footer and header of this talk that I'm giving here will give you an idea of kind of what to expect from it, but I like it.
La, 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 dee, da, da. 3 little devils jumped over the wall, lopped off his head, and murdered it all, and lopped a doodle da day.
All right. Number 1. And I defend this film.
So what are you going to Vegas for? You gonna win?
I'm gonna dance.
First of all, I'm going to ask, how many of you actually seen this movie? There we go. So, some of you might have actually seen it, but this is the notorious bad movie that everyone talks about. Big box office flop, record, like, payout for the script when it came out, Elizabeth Berkley, it's the whole 9 yards, right? Here's the thing. I think that it was intentional. And the reason why is because I don't know how you can look at Paul Verhoeven's career. Like, here's the thing. So, if you don't know who Paul Verhoeven is, he did movies like Basic Instinct, Total Recall. His big one is RoboCop. He also did, more importantly to this discussion, Starship Troopers. So, the reason why I bring Starship Troopers up is there has been a resurgence recently, or kind of like a revisiting of it. If you don't know, when Starship Troopers came out, it was not viewed satirically. It was viewed as, like, actually promoting fascism, and not, like, as a tongue-in-cheek, commentary on fascism. And it's only within the past 10 years, probably, have people started to look at Showgirls differently, and I think they should. And the reason why is, it's just so hard for me to believe that Paul Verhoeven would make Starship Troopers, which is obviously a scathing rebuke against fascism, and then make Showgirls without any of that in mind. Like, it's a time capsule of Las Vegas at the time. It was very transgressive for its time. Like, it got an NC-17 rating, which is basically a death knell. Before a movie is even released, that you're not going to make any money on this. But it did, because people rented it. People rented it! That meant people wanted to see it, right? For whatever reason. Whether it was just boobs, and because they heard it was bad, and that's why they wanted to see it, right? But I defend this film. I think if you watch this and you feel this feels fake, this feels melodramatic, it feels like just like unrealistic and stuff. Yes! That was Las Vegas. That was Hollywood. That was like that was yes. So, like, from what I've read, Verhoeven basically, the way that Elizabeth Berkley is acting is the way that Verhoeven intended. And, like, Elizabeth Berkley has finally, over the past, like, 10 or so years, kind of owned it a little more. For a long period of time, like, she was basically, and she still is, blackballed out of Hollywood because of this movie. And, there's moments where, like, this is one that, like, a lot of people watch because it's so bad it's good. And that's initially why I liked it. The more I watch it, though, the more I think it's secretly genius. That it is... The screenwriter of this also did Flashdance, if that gives you an idea of what kind of screenwriter he is. And people still think highly of Flashdance, and that's dumb. It's so dumb. She's a welder, and then she dances. Whatever. Anyways, but, like, there is a resurgence amongst film scholars to reconsider this as a masterpiece. Maybe not a masterpiece, but, like, a great film that is unappreciated at its time. And it's still not appreciated now. Like, and like I said, I'm talking beyond so bad it's good. So, the basic story, if you don't know the story of Showgirls, is all about Eve. But with strippers. And that's pretty much it. It's a simple story. It's super simple. And you've seen it before. But, like, that adds to it a bit, doesn't it? Everything in this just feels so fake. And so plasticized. And so clean. But yet not clean at the same time. Like, everything feels like unreal, like synthetic, but it's got such a high quality Hollywood touch to everything. So, but isn't Hollywood just synthetic? Like, how is this less synthetic than Marvel's Avengers? It's super synthetic. when you've got films, basically anything pumped out by Disney is made by committee nowadays. Except Last Jedi was not made by committee. But like everything else is, like, that's synthetic as fuck. And this, but they try to disguise it, and they try to, like, and it's all about, like, you know, it's all about, like, polling audiences and what they want to see and stuff like that. Like, there's literally a book about this film. There's 2 books. One of them was written by Elizabeth Berkley, and another one was written by a film scholar. Basically, Elizabeth Berkley's was more just kind of explaining how the film was made and stuff like that, and kind of self-reflection a little bit. Versus the book that was written by a film scholar, which is like touting it as like it. So there's this famous essay called Notes on Camp. And this film fits into that so well. And whether you believe this is one of those weird ones. This is a weird film where you could approach it from either with the death of the author perspective, where basically once it's out of the auteur's hands, it doesn't really matter. It's about how we experience it. Or you can also consider it with the auteur theory, kind of like contextualizing and stuff. And both of them still lead you to kind of a similar place, in my opinion, which is like, there's still like motifs. Like there's a motif about mirroring and like double imagery and stuff like that. It's shot beautifully. It's bizarre and unnatural, but like, yeah, it feels meta in a lot of, it feels like, not meta, meta's a bad term, but it feels like, especially everyone criticizes Elizabeth Berkley's acting, but like it stands out so much, and it kind of like, would the film have been better with a better actress? I don't think it would have been. If you have like Susan Sarandon from Basic Instinct, but like as Nomi Malone in this, would it have been a better film? No, I don't think so. Like, this is one I do think people should see, especially like if you're one of those people that's like, oh, it's such a bad movie, but you've never actually seen it. Like, actually see it before you decide that. Like, this is, it's frustrating because like people are reconsidering Starship Troopers to a point where people don't remember how much like Starship Troopers was not liked, like because it was considered pro-fascist. And now it's so crazy to think like, wow, but the film is basically a propaganda video itself. And like, it's rewriting possible history. Like, yeah, of course it is. Why can't we give the same treatment to Showgirls? I think it's at least worth that. I love this movie. I unabashedly love it. This is not a guilty pleasure because I don't feel any guilt in loving this. I think it is 100% underappreciated for what it is. It is, at the very least, a historical movie. It's a milestone movie. And I think that it is more artful than most people realize.
Showgirls. Leave your inhibitions at the door.
Sorry, the end there was a little short. There were just boobs all over that trailer. And there might be boobs in my next video, which is part 1 of 20 films I like that maybe you haven't heard of. See?